viewers. Now, getting into our conversations for this morning, we are turning our attention to Carnival a little bit, and not away from the bacchanal, but away into what you should and should not be doing for Carnival in terms of our health and our safety and that sort of thing. So, to speak to us a little bit on this, we are being joined by the Public Health Inspector for Mr. Ricardo Bobb. So, special good morning and welcome to you, Mr. Bobb. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Kandace. Good morning, Tobago. I'm wonderful.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, so we're talking about, health and safety tips for Carnival and so on. So first of all, let's start with something very common, food.
That's right.
So, we're all out on the road and we want to get some street food and so on. What are some of the things that we as citizens need to be aware of when we're going to purchase our food?
Well, the first thing is that you must look for safety. That's critical. Hygiene, the things that you could see physically. We want to ask people to look at a few things. Number one, we notice people like the ready-to-eat foods like your corn soup and your hot dogs and these things, grab and go. It's important that those foods that you have a lot of onions and stuff in and oil, those are things you need to watch carefully. You want to make sure that hot foods are kept hot, cold foods are kept cold. So there must be hot holding and cold holding facilities to be able to keep the product, especially like your corn soup, because you're chipping down the road. You're not going to be eating at a certain time until you're done, until everybody get together, until you finish having a good time. So those who are selling the food, first of all, must be mindful that you can have a lot of challenges if your hot foods are not kept hot. So if you know that people are consuming food at whether it's 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, you don't want to prepare it 6 o'clock in the morning and have it standing. Yeah? So you want to keep that food up 60 degrees and above. And you can measure that. That's why we encourage people to have your totes and your warmers and stuff, not for display, but actually working. And if it's a cold product, maybe something with mayo like your condiments and so on, they must be kept in ice. So you put them in utensils, put them in ice. So they should not be exposed to the elements, should not be exposed to the dust. And we have a lot of dust nowadays. So you want to cover them, keep them in ice. Remember, the food business is thriving on happy returning customers. And if the customers are not happy, they won't return and you lose. Even more than that, all food handlers should be registered. Now, Carnival is early this year. And we know that everybody would not get the current food badge, but if you have one for last year, you'll be allowed to use it for the Carnival season. Last year, we did over 6,000 food handlers. This year, we're going really fast. We've done a few hundred already. Yeah, we have to schedule people. They need to come for an appointment because it's just so much. We are doing up to 170 in a day. So it's a lot, and lots of people are complying. What we're saying is that if your food badge is supposed to be displayed, so folks shouldn't have to ask for it, because it is saying that you have been trained and you know the principles and you are taking care of the health of the folks. Another thing is running water, and that's easy to get even though you're mobile. There are these lovely buckets that they sell with the draw of tap, and you can fill it with water so you can wash your hands and so on. Your separate utensils. You shouldn't be using your hands to dispense food.
Or to even mix different types of food.
Yes, you shouldn't be doing that.
So each type of food should have its own utensil.
Own utensil, own dispenser, and so on. And you always keep cleaning and sanitizing between. Because things are really, really, really busy, then it's good if you can get help. Or if you don't have help, there are some things you can prepackage. For example, a person who may be selling pies, let's say like, those aloe pies. You may want to prepackage them, have your tongue and so on. And so you can take the cash because you may not have a person to help you to take cash for pies. But for those people who have mobile units and those, maybe they're selling from somewhere. Some people do the street vending, they set up a table. Then you must ensure that you follow those principles as well.
And then when it comes to even types of food that you should, trust, okay, in terms of like what would be something good that that would stand up against the elements. Of course, you need to keep it warm and so on, but what would be the more favorable types of food to lessen your chances of developing those diseases that affect you, that make you upset and cause you to go to the hospital and so on?
Well, that's kind of difficult to say because people have different preferences. But what you want is a food, the drier a food is, then microbes require certain things to multiply. They need food, acidity, time, temperature, oxygen, and moisture. So if you take away one of those things, then you minimize the probability. So moisture is one of the things you can manipulate. You can manipulate temperature. You can manipulate time. You can't really manipulate food because it's present. We want to eat it. Yeah. So the key is prepare food as close to the serving time as possible. And then you keep hot foods hot, cold foods cold. Keep them away from the elements.
And then, of course, for ourselves, hygiene is important when we're eating and even drinking.
Yes, definitely. Now, a lot of people think that, well, because I can see the microbes, they are not there. Let's say on our skin, we have this Staphylococcus aureus bacteria, and that can be transferred into food. So the cell phone, yeah, the excessive talking, sometimes you may spray in the food. You want to avoid foods that have maybe things like raw eggs, like some of your punches, and so maybe some of the ingredients may contribute dairy. Those are what we call high-risk foods. So things like that you may want to avoid. Some people like to have the provision and the dumplings and so on. If that is prepared too early, because remember, at the end of the process, you have to hand peel it. Yeah. So those foods that the last process has to do with something that you have to touch with your hands. You want to be mindful of those and look more for those that could be kept hot or cold.
And for the food vendors themselves, I know you touched on some things, of course, like the utensils, making sure that you're cleaning water and so on. What are some of the other things that they can do also to just ensure that their food stays clean and safe, especially with all the activity that's happening around?
All right. Now, we always talk to people about their attire. Now, because we have to interact with the food, your apron is a barrier between you and the food. That's very important. So one of the things that you can do is have a nice clean white apron. That is a good barrier. And if you have to leave the area to maybe go to the restroom or so, you need to remove the apron. Don't take it into those areas. Then you need to also make sure that you are washing your hands with soap and running water. And sanitizing is very important. Sanitizing your work surfaces and so on. Those things are very, very important.
And how often should you be doing that?
As often as possible. If you leave area, shift tasks, have to do some kind of physical preparation, anything that you have to move away from the area, just do it as often as possible.
All right. And then, in terms of just for us as people, like, sometimes we like to take our food there, like, decide that, what, we're not going to buy any food because we want to make sure that, we control our eating and so on. What are some tips in terms of, how to keep our food safe when we're out there, eating it with all the elements and so on?
Right. Now, you can keep your food hot as well. So a good cooler is going to be good to keep your cold things cold. So when you prepare that food, for example, people are going kind of healthy these days. They want to maintain good health, and so they do a lot of vegetables. Vegetables are high risk. So when you're preparing your vegetables, you need to wash and sanitize them well. A good sanitizing solution would be like about 1 tablespoon of household bleach to a liter of water. After you wash them, you soak that in there for about 5 to 7 minutes, and then you rinse it out. After you finish chopping up your stuff, make sure you sanitize all the utensils. You refrigerate. When you're going out, then you put that on ice. Make sure you have a lot of ice. That's for your cold holding. Watch your condiments again. So if you're doing your garlic sauces, your mayo and stuff, you want to add that when you're about to eat, but you want to keep it cool. And then if you're doing warm food, then there are warmers that you can have. So when you put it in there, it's kept warm. And then once you do that, because what the problem is having food at room temperature. That's the problem. So you want to keep it below 7 degrees, below 5 degrees Celsius. And you want to keep it above 60 degrees. So when you finish preparing that food, while it's hot, then you put it in your cooler, you put it in your warmer, and that will be fine.
And then what about alcohol?
Right. Well, if I have my way, I would say no alcohol, but I don't have my way.
And it's
There's
Carnival,
no
so
So, okay. People want to watch. You want to maintain self-control. You want to always be in control of all your actions. So whatever you do, you must never lose control. Never lose control, because a lot of times we make errors. So let's say you are hungry and you are intoxicated, you're likely to purchase food that is not safe. So always maintain self-control. That's the key.
And there's a lot of people out there that might be doing their rum punches and all those different mixes. What should you be aware of when you are approaching these vendors and being tempted into
How long did they make it? It's good if these things can be made where people can see. If you notice the things that people can see, they trust a lot more because we don't know what is always happening behind the scenes. And for those who are using eggs and so on in their product, now people think that you can just use eggs. Eggs must be kept well, our eggs have salmonella enteritidis bacteria, and so you need to clean and sanitize them. And be careful when you're using, as a matter of fact, raw eggs are not recommended at all. Not raw. They should undergo some cooking. Now, people put eggs in different things, but it's not the best thing to do.
All right. And is there anything else that we missed when talking about the health and safety tips for Carnival that people should be aware of?
Well, of course, dehydration is hot now, and we have a lot of Sahara dust. So if you know that you have those respiratory challenges, then you need to make sure and take good care of yourself. Hydration. A lot of times we get challenges with the respiratory system when we are dehydrated. We require that mucous membrane to be well hydrated. So hydration is critical. Watch your sugar intake. So things like your carbonated beverages, because remember you're putting out energy. Those carbonated beverages may prevent you from absorbing certain important nutrients that you need to keep the system well. Make sure that you're fit. If you know you're not fit, then there are some things you really have to leave alone. And I know Carnival time is the time when people like to take off all their clothes, but it's good to be covered when you're out in the sun there because you lose more moisture simply by just covering the head. People be amazed at what that does. When you keep the head cool, then you have a lot more control over your physiology.
And sunscreen as well.
Oh, well, that too. That too. But the key thing, an experience that people try to enjoy can be destroyed by a bout of foodborne illness. As a matter of fact, we have had people die from foodborne illness, and so it's important. And I usually say to the vendors when we do training, if you are not prepared to eat the food that you prepare, then you really shouldn't serve it to anybody. Yeah, as human beings, we have to eat, so it's important. Those who provide the food, you must ensure that the people who purchase and consume that food, no ill come to them.
All right. And so I just want to thank you so much, Mr. Bobb, for being on with us and for giving us these tips here for Carnival. And will the public inspectors be out on the road inspecting?
As always.
As always.
Just one more thing. Our sessions are on Thursdays, the food bag session. You can come to our office, corner Robinson Young Street, to get your appointment. And the sessions are now done at the Scarborough Library. Previously, it was at Fairfield Complex. So it's at the Scarborough Library. But remember that if you don't get an appointment because Carnival is so early, then you use the food badge for 2023, not 2022 and 2021,
2023
and 2024.
All right, good. So there you have it, folks. Make sure if you're a vendor, make sure you have your food badges. Even if you don't have this year, they are still accepting 2023's food badge until you are able to reapply again. And so make sure you get connected with the Public Health Division to get your stuff in order for the rest of the year, because we've got quite a lot of activities coming up for the rest of the year, and you're definitely going to want to be there, be able to have your food badge for that. And of course, we know the inspectors are going to be out there making sure that things are safe and make sure that us on the road are safe as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Bobb.
Thank you, Kandace.
All right, viewers, so we got a lot more coming up for you on the program, so please don't go anywhere.